Hey everybody, this is Mr. Storm. In this video, we are going to build a version of the game called Scattergories. I don't know if you've ever played this game before, but essentially the game works like this. You have a category and you have a certain amount of time to name as many items within that category as possible. Now, the actual Scattergories game will say name states starting with the letter M, right? And you have to name all the states that you can starting with the letter M, or name all of the celebrities whose names start with the letter R. We're not going to worry about the letter thing. You can if you want, but the one I'm building is not going to worry about the letter thing. We are going to, however, build in a time limit. We're going to learn how to do that. And we're going to use these new for loops that we've been learning this week to iterate through an array and determine if what they've guessed matches what's in the array. So there's quite a lot that we're going to do. So let's go ahead and get started. First of all, let's talk about the libraries we need. For this project, we need, as always, our import java.util.scanner. And I think that's actually all we need. Now, there are many ways to build the timing system in Java. We're going to do one that doesn't require any other libraries. We're going to do the simplest version. Okay, let's see. We have our main method here. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this. Let's start planning out what we want to do. First of all, we're going to need a method that handles our guess. So every time our user guesses, we need to create a method that's going to handle that. And we need a method to handle calculating our time, our timer method. Okay. All right. So let's build the guess method first. It's going to be a public method, static, and it's going to return an integer. And you'll see why in a second. Guess. And we're going to pass in the scanner. So that way we can have them actually type in their answer. Okay, and in this section, we're going to actually create the array of possible answers. So for my game, I'm going to have them guess as many Avengers as they possibly can, right? So I have a list of a bunch of different characters from the Marvel movies, and I'm going to put them in an array, and then I'm going to have them guess as many of those as they can within 1 minute. So I could sit here and write out the entire array, but I actually put it in my notes over here to save me some typing. So I'm going to copy it. Let's copy that. And I will paste it into here. And I'll paste it. There we go. For some reason, the actual paste didn't want to work, but Control V did. All right, so if we take a look here, I have a string array called Avengers, and I have a bunch of different characters from the Marvel movies in this array. Notice that they're all lowercase. That's because when I ask them the question, I'm going to turn their answer into a lowercase to make it a lot easier to compare between from one to the other. Okay, so I have my array. Your array is going to be different, right? Because you're going to be asking them a different category question. You're not going to be asking them to name the Avengers. You're going to be asking them to name all the brands of cars they can think of, or name every U.S. state, or name U.S. senators, or, whatever, however many different YouTubers they can think of. Whatever you're into, that's going to be your question. Mine is Avengers because that's what I'm into. All right, so I'm going to say int match. I'm going to set that equal to 0. Basically what this is going to do is this is going to create a variable which allows us to check to see if they've matched. All right. Let's say system.out.print, and let's give it a new line so it looks nicer. Let's say guess an Avenger. Again, your question is going to be different. Guess a basketball player, or guess an NFL team, or whatever, right? And then in here, I'm going to capture their guess. String user equals reader.next line. And I'm going to say, oh, went too far, dot to lower case. All right, so that's going to capture whatever they answer into this user variable. Then all we have to do is we have to create our for loop, which is going to iterate through each index of this array and check to see if what they've entered equals what index we're looking at that iteration of the loop. So there are two different ways to do this. Both of them are using for loops. One is using a for each. So let's do it with a traditional for loop, and then I will show you how to do it with a for each. You can choose whichever one you like. So for the first part of the for loop is the iterator. So it has to be, let's say, a new int I equals 0. So we're going to start our iteration at 0, right? And then we'll say while I, so for the second part of the for loop, we'll say while I is less than Avengers.length. And I spelled length wrong. Avengers.length. Is it lowercase l? Avengers.length. Let me see. There is a method to check the length of an array in Java. I'm just trying to remember. Is that it? That's what I thought it was, right? Avengers.length. Maybe that's the string length. Let's see. Well, maybe we won't do this with a traditional for loop. Let's actually just use a for each loop for this, because that's what for each loops are used for. That's what they're built for. That's how they work. So in a for loop, or in a for each loop, the first part of the comparison, the first part of the loop, is the thing that we're looking at. So this is a string array, so it's going to store, for the first iteration of the loop, it's going to store the words Iron Man into this variable string I. So into this variable I, it's going to store Iron Man. And the array that we're looking at is Avengers. So for each I in Avengers, then we're going to make a comparison. We're going to check to see if something matches. So for each loops are a lot easier to understand. I was going to try to do it with a for loop, but apparently Java doesn't have an array length method that I can quickly use. So anyway, we'll say if I dot equals user. So basically, if whatever they've if this index equals whatever they typed, then we're going to increase match by 1. We'll do match plus plus. Now we can turn match into a Boolean variable and just make it false and then turn it into true if we'd like. The problem with that is we'd have to have another if statement that said, like, if match equals true, then we add, at some point we're going to have a number, because what we're going to do is we're going to return, oh, why is this? Okay. Anyway, so what we're going to do is we're going to return the value of match. So the logic here is if whatever they type matches what's in the array, then match becomes 1. If whatever they type does not match what's in the array, then match stays 0 and we return 0. And then here in this method, after we check to see if their answer, or after we give them the option to guess, we're going to use match as their score for that round. Okay, so this method here, this guess method, is now finished. It's done. Let's talk about our timer. So the timer is going to use a system or a feature of Java where we can pull the current time from the computer that we're using. Now, this time comes in as milliseconds, and milliseconds use a special kind of variable called a long. I don't know why I created those brackets there. Sorry. a long. Instead of a float or an int, it uses a long. So this is going to return a long. So this needs to be a long method. So it's going to be a public static long. We'll call it timer. And then we're going to pass in a long variable called start time, which we will create in our main method in just a minute. So what this method is going to do is it's going to figure out how much time has elapsed since we started counting, and then it's going to divide that time, those milliseconds by 1,000. So we get a regular, just random, just an actual number of seconds instead of milliseconds. So we'll say long elapsed time equals system dot current time millis or milliseconds minus start time. So we're going to take whatever we pass in as the start time, and we're going to subtract the current milliseconds from the start time. So we can get the difference between when we started and where we are now. Then we'll say long elapsed seconds equals elapsed time divided by 1,000. Okay, so we're going to turn those milliseconds into regular seconds. Then we just will return elapsed seconds. Okay, so that is a very, very easy timing method that we've just now created. All right, now it's time to start programming our main method, the main part of our program. We have the two methods we need for this to work, so let's go program our main method. The first thing we want to do is we want to create this start time variable. We want to, right as soon as we start the game, we want to figure out what is the current time. So long start time equals system dot current time millis. Okay, so we get the current time in milliseconds right away, right at the top of the program. Then we want a variable that handles how many total correct answers they've guessed. So total correct, we'll say that equals 0 at the beginning of the game. Let's create an instance of our scanner equals new scanner system system.in. Okay, now we just need to tell them, hey, welcome to Scattergories. System dot out dot print line. Welcome to Scattergories. And we have to print out instructions. So I'm going to copy this, and I will say you have, let's do 30 seconds, just because 60 seconds feels like forever. You have 30 seconds to guess as many Avengers as possible. And again, for you, it's going to be different. Guess as many U.S. states. Guess as many, movies directed by, I don't know, Steven Spielberg or whatever, right? Okay, so in here, we're going to use a while loop. The while loop is going to continue to run while our timer is less than 30, right? So basically, once we've run out of time, we're going to stop being able to guess. Now, there is a bit of a bug in this program, the way I built it. In order to fix this bug, it would take a ton of extra programming that we're not going to worry about. So we're just going to have to live with the bug. So what I've done here is timer. So while timer, so we're going to call this timer method down here, right? So we're checking while the timer, and we're passing in start time, is less than 30. So remember, this is going to return the amount of seconds that have elapsed since we started playing the game. While that number is less than 30, then we'll allow them to play. All right. Now inside this this while loop, we're going to create an integer. We'll say correct equals guess reader. So we're going to call that guess method. which is going to ask them to put in their guess. Now remember, if they guess correctly, it returns a 1. If they don't guess correctly, it returns a 0. So we're going to say correct equals guess reader. Correct is going to turn to 1 if they've guessed correctly, turn to 0 if they didn't guess correctly. We'll say if correct equals 1, then we will improve this total correct. We'll make total correct. We'll add 1 to total correct, right? This is a global variable that's going to track it through all of the iterations of our loop. This is a temporary variable that's going to hold it temporarily, right? So we'll say total correct plus plus. All right, then let's figure out how much time we have left. So we'll say long seconds left. Say equals 30 minus timer start time. So we're going to call that timer method again. We're going to tell them how many seconds they have left. System.out.println. You have and we'll just tell them how many seconds they have left. All right. And let's see, what else? I think that's pretty much what we need for the while loop. Now, when their time is up, we've got to tell them. So we're going to have to do a print line copy. We'll have to say something to the effect of, let's do a new line so it looks nice. Time's up. And then let's tell them how many they got right. So you guessed total correct Avengers. Okay. So I think that's it. We have to close out our reader, so let's not forget to do that. Reader.close. Okay, and I think that's it. Let's go ahead and test the game and see if it works the way we want it to. Okay, let's go ahead and run it. Okay, all right, so it says you have 30 seconds to guess as many Avengers as possible. I'm going to guess an Avenger, Iron Man. You have 24 seconds left. Torso Boy. You have 18 seconds left. Oof. Poop Sandwich. Black Widow. Batman. Oh, I have 1 second left. Now, here's where the glitch comes in. This is where our bug happens. Notice that it says I have 1 second left, and that was way more than a second ago. And it's just waiting for me to guess. Basically, once time runs out, if it's waiting for me to guess, then it'll just wait forever. So I have unlimited amounts of time for my last question, for my last answer, right? It's not really game breaking. There's still an illusion. Like you still only have a certain amount of time, but on that last answer, you have as much time as possible. So I'll say Captain America. All right, so I have negative 42 seconds left. Time is up. I guessed 3 Avengers properly. So I got Iron Man, I got Black Widow, and I got Captain America. So I got 3 of them right, which is exactly how the game is supposed to work. Now, if I wanted to play again, I can just run it again. I was going to put in another loop that handled, playing it again, repeating the game if we wanted to, but this is already kind of complicated enough. I didn't want to go too much farther past 50 lines of code. So anyway, so this game works. It's functional. It's pretty fun. I want to see some creativity here. I want you to come up with a different category than just Avengers. Come up with something else. Okay. Let me know if you have any questions or if you need any help. I'll see you next time.